This call is now being recorded.
Sorry, unmute. Till then, mute yourself. Otherwise, full voice is going.
Sir, good morning, sir. Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. கேக்குதா?
கேக்குது சார். கேக்குது.
Okay.
Sir, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
வணக்கம். Good morning.
Sir, right.
ஜெயமூர்த்தி பிரசன்டேஷன் மோட்ல போய் கொஞ்சம் செக் பண்ணி பார்க்கவா?
சார் பார்த்துடலாம் சார். சார் செக் பண்ணிடலாம் சார்.
ஓகே. வந்தா வர சொல்லுங்க.
ஷேர் பண்ணிட்டீங்களாங்க சார்?
இந்த வரேன்.
ஓகே சார். ஓகே சார். யாருக்கு அதை நான் போட்டுக்கிறேன். ஓகே, அது 10:30 தான். Yes, yes. Sir, visible, sir.
Right, we can start. கொஞ்சம் நீங்க உட்காரு. Class இருக்கா?
Sir, it is visible.
Okay.
மேடம் அப்புறம் வந்துட்டு இருக்காங்க. செகண்ட் இயர் எடுக்கிறாங்க. சார்,
We can start.
ஓகே சார், ஓகே சார். தேங்க்யூ சார். சொல்லிடுவாங்க சார். ஆரம்பிச்சு. Good morning to you all. On behalf of Department of Commerce, Alagappa University, I have great pleasure and privilege to welcome our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Alagappa University. I welcome you, sir. I would like to welcome our respected registrar, respected syndicate members, respected professor and head of the department, Dr. T.R. Gurumurthy, sir. I welcome you, sir. I would like to welcome our resource person, Professor Dr. V. Manikavasam, sir, former registrar, Alagappa University, to this great FDP program. I welcome you, sir. I would like to welcome the organized secretaries, Dr. Ganapati, sir, Dr. Gurubandi, sir, committee members, Dr. Nedumaran, sir, Dr. Kanagavalli, madam, Dr. Menaga, madam, to this great FDP program. I welcome you all. I would like to welcome our respected participants to this great session on ethics and corporate governance. Today, I welcome you all. Once again, I welcome you all for this great session. Now, may I request and invite Dr. V. Manikavasanam sir to deliver a special lecture on ethics and corporate governance. Please, sir.
Good morning to all of you. Am I audible?
Audible, sir.
Okay, fine. So good morning to all of you. Respected Head of the Department of Commerce, Dr. Gurumurthy, learned faculty members of the department, the organizing secretary, Dr. Gurubandi, the distinguished participants of this 5 days faculty development program. I am extremely happy to be part of this program. And first, let me express my thanks to the Department of Commerce, especially Dr. Gurumurthy and the organizing secretary, Dr. Gurubandi, for inviting me as a resource person to share my thought on two contemporary topics, namely the ethics and the corporate governance. When they asked me, sir, we are organizing an FDP on leadership qualities or leadership and excellence, I said corporate governance is the need of the hour today, and the ethics is sine qua non for every individual in today's context. And therefore, I said that I will share my thought on these areas, which was readily agreed to. And I thank the organizers for inviting me to share my views. The reason for choosing this topic is that we, the teachers of the colleges and universities, have to be the role models, because in those days, education was ethics oriented, value oriented. So people tried to achieve the value oriented perfection in those days. But what happens today is the material success is given importance rather than value oriented perfection. Everybody wants to achieve perfection. Even the title of the program is excellence, leadership and excellence. So everybody wants to achieve excellence, everybody wants to accomplish perfection, but how? What is the means? It should be value-oriented perfection. It should not be material-oriented perfection. Excellence should be value-oriented excellence, not material-oriented excellence. And therefore, I thought that this topic is the need of the hour today, and I will begin this with a small story rather. A man went to a market to buy an animal market, to buy a camel. He chose the camel, and the seller also agreed to part with the camel, and he asked the price. What is the price of it? He says it is say 10,000 rupees. Just an example. So he hands over 10,000 rupees and the seller hands over the camel to the buyer. Buyer comes home with the camel. Actually, when the camel was sold, normally the string that is tied to the neck of the camel, the cloth that is put on the saddle of the camel, everything comes. Not that the seller will take off the cloth and the string from the camel and hand over the bare camel alone. So he sold the camel. The buyer came home with the camel and he asked his maid, that is the servant, to wash the camel, to make the camel take bath. And when the servant maid, actually we should not use, in United States of America, people say we should not use the term servant. We should use the term only maid, which is a common gender, both singular and plural, I mean both masculine and female. And when he was washing the camel, he found that in the saddle cloth there was a pouch, and inside the pouch there were some 20 diamond pieces. Immediately he took all the diamond pieces, met the master and said, "Master, you have not only bought a camel, you have also bought 20 pieces of the diamonds." Then the buyer said, the master said, no, it doesn't belong to me. I bought only the camel. I paid the price only for the camel, not for the diamonds. And therefore, these diamonds do not belong to me. I should immediately go to the market, hand over back all these diamonds to the seller. The servant maid ridiculed him. What, master, you are doing? God has blessed you with these diamond pieces. Therefore, please do not return them. Hold them for you, for your use. But he said, no, it doesn't belong to me. It is not my property. So he goes back to the market, meets the seller and hands over all the diamond pieces. The seller feels very happy. He starts counting the pieces and checks that the 20 pieces are there. Then out of 20 pieces, out of gratitude, he hands over 2 pieces of the diamonds to the buyer and thanks him for his honesty. Buyer said, no sir, I do not need these 2 diamonds because before handing over these 20 pieces of diamonds, I have already taken 2. The seller was confused. He again checks the number of pieces and finds that the number of pieces is correct. He is confused. 20 pieces are intact. How did you take 2 pieces from this? Then it should be only 18. He said, when I said 2 pieces I have taken, I did not mean the diamond pieces. I took 2 virtues, namely honesty and integrity. So I retain with me the 2 pieces of diamonds, namely one is honesty, the other one is integrity. And you hold all these material 20 diamond pieces. So what the seller meant was material success. What the buyer meant was value-oriented honesty, value-oriented success. Both of them have achieved a win-win situation. Now, why I am giving this small story is that we, the people, should be the teachers, should maintain these 2 virtues, namely honesty and integrity in our profession and in our vocation. When we practice it, we actually become a role model. And as Dr. Kalam rightly pointed out, we will love our profession with these 2 virtues, namely honesty and integrity, and we can inculcate these values in our students. We can teach them, we can impart to them the knowledge with the virtues which are required. Now, let me go to the core part of my discussion, namely the ethics first. What is ethics? The ethics refers to, ethics we classify into different categories. Business ethics. I am not going to give you any textbook matter for that information. So you can be rest assured that there will not be any repetition of textbook matters. This is all what we have learned, we have acquired from many speakers and many ethics practicing professionals. So when value-centered perfection is the ultimate goal of every human being instead of the material success. Now our Vedas, that is we say Vedanta, according to Vedanta, our thoughts and actions are governed by ethical values and habits. Excuse me, Vinayagamurthy, did you call me?
Sir, please adjust your camera, sir.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, sir.
Is it okay?
Sir, slightly, sir. Innu panunga, sir. Enakku full up panunga. Enakku camera clear irukku, sir. டபுள் தான் தெரியுது.
அப்படியா? ஓ,
ஆமாம் சார், டபுளா தெரியுது.
கேமரா டபுளா தெரியுதா? என்னது அட்ஜஸ்ட் பண்ண கேமரா.
இன்னும் டபுளா இருக்கு சார். சார் நீங்க சொல்லுங்க.
Camera is not correct. Camera please correct.
Sir, you can sign out, then again you can log in, sir.
Enjoy.
It may solve the problem, sir.
Is it okay now?
Now okay. Now okay.
Okay, okay. Sorry for the interruption. Entire screen. Presentation screen.
Sir, okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, is it visible now?
Sir, visible, sir.
Okay. So, according to our Vedas, the thoughts and actions should be governed by ethical values and habits. Now, these Vedas, which we call as Vedanta, it is more or less the same as what Socrates said in those days. What Socrates said is, the practice of the virtue should be preceded by rational understanding of the implications and nature of the virtue. In other words, our Vedas say, Viveka should precede the Vairagya. That is, the understanding should precede the dispassion. And not only that, there are 6 virtues which stabilize our mind and emotions. And these virtues should be practiced continuously. What are the 6 virtues? One is tranquility, that is the peace. We want to achieve peace in our day-to-day life and everywhere in the country. And second one is training. See, in our profession, vocation, we want continuous training. That is, we have to continuously build our competencies. And third one is withdrawal. Suppose you are not necessary in a particular place, it is better we withdraw ourselves from the scene. Forbearance, we must have utmost patience. And fourth one is the faith. The faith is the sort of the virtue which should be developed and emulated by everyone. And focus implies the concentration. That is, whenever you want to complete a job with utmost perfection, it is necessary that we focus on that work. So these are the 6 ethical virtues which have been propounded by the Vedanta. And this is what Socrates also said. Now, our father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, he said that, he always struggled to unite the mankind in the common pursuit of justice and establishment of a moral order in the world society. See, Mahatma Gandhi was all the time emphasizing that a moral order should prevail. And he appealed to the countrymen to observe truthfulness in business. I'm going to give you what he regarded as the sins. And he reminded that their responsibility was greater. That is, the responsibility of the businessman is greater. Why? It reflects the country's face. And Mahatma Gandhi's concept relating to business was that the businessman has to act only as a trustee of the society. You know what is the role of a trustee? A trustee is only to safeguard the property. He should not gain from the trust. So, for whatever he has gained from the society, he must act as a trustee of the society, and this trusteeship provides a sort of means to transform the present capitalist order into an egalitarian one. That means all are equal. Nobody is inferior, nobody is superior. And these are the social sins listed by Mahatma Gandhi. Politics without the principles. Actually, the kings and the Maharajas in those Indian tradition, they were only the guardians and they were the servants of Dharma. That is why Mahatma Gandhi always wanted that politics should be practiced with the principles. So politics without the principle is a sin. And Mahatma Gandhi always advocated the Ramarajyam, that was the symbol dedicated to the principles. And the second and the third, they relate to economics, the sphere of economics, wealth without work and commerce without morality. And Gandhiji took the lead from Tolstoy and Ruskin relating to the second and the third component, namely wealth without work. Because people should earn wealth through the hard work. And the third maxim, namely the commerce with morality, it is the idea of trusteeship, which I said now. And knowledge without the character, the fourth dictum, it deals with the knowledge. Education stands for the all-round development of the human being. And as Swami Vivekananda rightly said, manifestation of perfection already existing in man. And Gandhiji's system of the development of Gandhiji's system of education was basically the development of one's character. And true knowledge, it leads to the development of one's character. And next one is pleasure without conscience. Knowledge leads to the development of one's character, where one evolves his rational self. He evolves his rational self. Mahatma Gandhi said that if you act according to your conscience, then if you want to practice or if you want to work according to your conscience, then there is no need for any sort of witness, because you cannot have any witness for your conscience. And next one is science without humanity. This is what we are witnessing today. We want a science with greater thrust, with a greater focus on humanity, because today it is said that the research work is going on in around 28 laboratories in discovering the vaccine for COVID-19. But one country has already ordered, for example, United States has already placed huge orders with China, bulk orders for buying all the vaccine. Then what about the rest of the world? So you should always have the humanity, concept of humanity in your mind when we use science for our betterment. And last one is worship without sacrifice is a sin. Now we must worship, we must offer prayers, but with the sacrifice for social service. Sacrifice does not mean sacrificing the animals. Here, worship with sacrifice for social service. Otherwise, the worship has no value at all. So, Gandhiji's everyday prayer was a reflection of all these virtues. And these virtues have been enunciated in Bhagavad Gita also. And next one is the I want to draw a line of distinction between the ethics and morals. What is ethics and what is morals? Ethics is a term which is derived from the ancient Greek word, and now it was derived from ethos, whereas moral is the Latin. It was derived from the Latin word mos, M-O-S, mos, meaning character. So moral refers to character, whereas ethics refers to the habits, values of a particular person or a group. In other words, ethics is personal, whereas moral is practiced by a society, a religion, an authority. And if you look at another distinction between the two, morals are accepted from an authority, whereas ethics is practiced by the self, and it is accepted by everyone. And therefore, when we understand this line of demarcation between ethics and morals, we must also note that moral works on a smaller basis, that is a lower circumference, whereas ethics works on a larger scale, because everywhere you can practice ethics, because you just follow your own conscience and you enjoy the pleasure with this dictum from conscience. So these are the social sins which have been listed by Mahatma Gandhi. And next one is workplace ethics. If you want to practice the ethics in the workplace, then you must take into account these factors. One is the individual standards and values. Second one is the managers and co-workers' influence. And third is opportunity, that is the codes and the compliance requirements. Because sometimes there will be an opportunity to commit unethical practices. Now, all these things result in ethical or unethical choices in workplace. Let me tell you, individual standards and values. Ethics starts from the individual first. So if I want to be ethical in my profession, in my society, in my family, then I must start practicing the values and virtues. The values like honesty, integrity, truthfulness. Even Mahatma Gandhi said, what is God? God is nothing but truth. What is the truth? Truth is nothing but God. And therefore, just like we say the charity should begin at home, the values, practicing the values should start from the self, individual. Then second thing, in the workplace, sometimes there may be some impediments while working in a place, because we may have to follow the instructions of the managers, and we have to adjust with the co-workers. Otherwise, we will be branded as a person who is unfamiliar to the world, who is new to this world, who does not know how to lead their life. And therefore, managers and co-workers' influence is also important, is another factor. Third factor, there are opportunities for following the code, for complying with the requirements. Now it is for you to choose the code and the compliance requirement. There are possibilities that you may violate this code also. You may not comply with the requirements, but that will not result in ethical choice of the ethical practices. Now, normally when an individual works in a college or a university or in a company, then he faces number of issues, number of problems. Now, I have listed these problems. When you have a relationship with the suppliers and business partners, you face these issues: bribery and immoral entertainment. All of us would have experienced this type of issue. Second is a discrimination between the suppliers. People do not treat everybody alike. They discriminate. And dishonesty in making and keeping the contracts, because the contract should be honored, if it is not honored, then it shows that the person is not ethical. In those days, there was no written contract at all. Everything was by word of mouth. But still, these word of mouth contracts were fully honored. But today, we have written contracts, we have registered agreements, which are contracts, still they are not honored. It shows that people do not follow the ethical practices. Then second category is relationship with the customers. Unfair pricing, cheating the customers, dishonest advertising, research confidentiality. These are all the various issues faced with regard to the customers. Then with the employees, discrimination in hiring and treatment of the employees. This we have faced when you were an applicant for a job, you would have experienced this type of discrimination. That is, people will treat you differently. Then, because I have experienced a lot in my earlier days. And last one is management of resources. Unethical practices occur in the form of embezzlement of funds, that is misuse of organizational funds, and tax evasion. So all these issues are faced by the individual while working in the work spot. Now I have brought some examples to be shown to you with regard to the business relationships. Now Tata Steel always follows the ethical practices. To quote one incident, I tell you, some 10 or 15 years back, there was an earthquake in Maharashtra, Latur, and another place, two places, Gujarat and Maharashtra. There was a series of earthquakes. Many houses were destroyed by the earthquake. Many precious lives were lost. And the entire country was in grief. But few houses were not at all affected by this earthquake. Those houses were constructed with the Tata Steel. One employee in Tata Steel met the top management and said, "Sir, we will advertise, we will give an advertising that those buildings which were constructed with Tata Steel withstood the devastating effect of this earthquake." But immediately the Tata top management said, "No, we need not earn money by creating an ad, an advertisement in a sad incident, that is a distress related incident, the earthquake. So we should not exploit this in order to make money." So Tata Steel still follows those ethical practices. Similarly, in Tamil Nadu also you can see one company, for example, Shakti Sugars, is a large conglomerate. This company has an ethical practice in business relationship, because business is business. You can do business, you can even indulge in any sort of business, provided it is legally accepted. But ethics is a little different. What Shakti Sugars said is, we have a sugar mill, we manufacture sugar, but never we will make or we will sell this bagasse for the liquor manufacturing companies, because our policy is that we are totally against this liquor. So companies have their own ethics, business relationship. Next one is the conflict of interest. This conflict of interest is the main reason for bribe. When the company's interest or the organization's interest clashes with the personal interest, then this conflict takes place. Now, I have given you an example of Devu Motors. Devu Motors, 7 executives of Devu Motors, they were prosecuted for taking about 20 billion US dollars worth of foreign exchange loans. And they were prosecuted for that. They misused the company's name for taking loans. Similarly, Walmart stores, they still have a toughest policy even today. The Sam Walt, the founder, when in those days, he imposed this toughest policy. The policy was that no employee, whatever position he occupies, either top or bottom, he should never accept any favor from any supplier, including a tea from a business supplier. This was the toughest policy. And fairness and honesty. Once the Japanese company Mitsubishi faced the criminal charges. What was the criminal charge? Purposely, for over a period of 20 years, they concealed all the complaints against the Mitsubishi Motors related to defects in the product. Because if they make open these complaints, if they make public these complaints, then it will result in recall of all the vehicles sold out. So for over 20 years, they were concealing all the complaints received from the customers, for which they later paid the penalty. Similarly, communications. Communication should be open with the employees, with the customers, with the suppliers, with the general public, with the government, almost all the stakeholders. Johnson & Johnson company faced a litigation in this regard. The consumers of the Johnson & Johnson company, actually the one contact lens was sold by the company. That contact lens, I have forgotten the name, ACUVE, if I remember correct. That contact lens was sold by Johnson & Johnson. They sold two different types of contact lens. One was the lifespan of one type of contact lens was only 1 day. The other one was a little longer. What they said, you buy these two different things. For 1 day you wear it, and the other lens you can wear it later. This was what was advertised and advised by Johnson & Johnson. But consumers found that both these two lenses, contact lenses, were identical. And therefore, there was no need for buying this one-time use of 1 day lens, which resulted in huge loss to the consumers. And when they filed a litigation, then it was held by the honorable court that Johnson & Johnson must pay $860 million as compensation to the consumers, because communication was not open. So these were all the ethical issues faced. Now, what is the importance of the ethical behavior in the workplace? When we follow the ethical practices, then there is a lower risk of employees making unethical decisions. If we do not follow the ethics, then increased risk is there. Number one. Number two, sometimes the employees may resort to violations. We come across many in many shopping malls. If the customer makes a complaint, immediately is manhandled by the employees of the shopping mall or an organization. So there is a possibility that they may resort to violation. Third one is inability to recruit and retain top people. Where ethical practices are not followed, then people who are value-centered, people who are value-centric, they will immediately leave the organization, because nobody will like to. In government offices, you can see top officials, when they are not actually not permitted to be ethical, then they will get a transfer and leave that organization, leave that department. Then next one is diminished reputation in the industry and community. See, the industry, just like banking profession, rests on the confidence of the customers. Once the confidence of the customer is lost, then the reputation is diminished, and the business also will be lost. And next one is significant legal exposure and loss of competitive advantage in the marketplace. See, there are companies which have earned a very good name because of their ethical practices. Though the prices are higher, the quality is good, and they will never lose their businesses. Then these are the guidelines for managing ethics in the workplace. Codes of conduct. Codes of conduct and ethics. So we must follow the code of conduct and ethics. Every organization at the time of recruitment and selection of the employees gives a list of code of conduct and ethics to be followed. So employees should go through these codes of conduct, number one. Number two, as I said earlier, there shall be open communication. Communication need not be from top to bottom. It should be from bottom to top also. And whenever we make decisions, we must follow ethics in groups and make these decisions public. Old management saying is that consult all the people, make the decision on your own. When you consult all the people, be open, be transparent, be fair, and definitely your decision will be welcomed by everyone. And integrate ethics management with other management practices. It should be a continuous affair. It is not related to one aspect alone, and it should be percolating all throughout the organization. And use of cross-functional teams. Suppose in my department, I want to check whether my employees are ethical or not, then I should not go and check. Instead, I must make use of other department employees so that they can, the cross-functional team can develop and implement the ethical management program. An appointment an ombudsman. Ombudsman is a person who is responsible for redressal of all the grievances of the employees and creating an atmosphere of trust. We must make sure that the organization always follows openness. There is an atmosphere of trust. So everybody can come, and even there can be whistleblowers also. And regularly we must update the policies and procedures. Sometimes the policies are outmoded, obsolete, and this will not be in consonance with the time. And next one is grievance policy for the employees. In many organizations, you can see grievance meeting is held once in a month or once in a quarter, and a suggestion box, grievance boxes are put up. So they are invited from the employees. And finally, we, the top executives, should set an example. Because as I said earlier, we, the teachers, should be the role models. So when we follow this, definitely ethics can be ensured at all levels. And as Dr. Kalam pointed out, that we will start loving our profession, and as teachers, we do not discriminate among our students on the basis of caste, creed, religion, language, etc. And we celebrate the success of the students. We continuously build our competencies, and we always realize that we achieve success in our profession only when we raise the level of the lower level student to an average level, and an average level student to the high achieving level. So only when we do that, then we become successful teachers. So this is with regard to ethics part. I think 1/2 of my time is over. Now next one is, let me go to next part of presentation, corporate governance. Now this ethics is related to corporate governance, because corporate governance, I would like to draw your kind attention to the fact that companies in India are bound by the provisions of Companies Act 2013. Earlier it was 1956. Earlier it was 1913. But recently passed act was 2013 Act. So many changes took place in that act. Companies should follow the provisions of the Act, Companies Act, no doubt in it. Is it enough? The question is it enough? Answer is no, it is not enough. Mere compliance with the legal requirement alone is not enough. I will give you one example. You can be legally correct, but ethically, morally, you may not be all right. In London, in River Thames, the washermen were washing their clothes. When they were washing their clothes, they were using high-power detergent cakes. And as a result, what happened was the fish in the river were dead. Nobody could prevent the washermen from using the high-power detergent cakes. But when the fish were dead, being unable to bear the chemicals that were used in the making of the detergent soaps, the ethics is totally lost there. So we must make profits. Corporate governance means that follow ethical practices and also make profits. So earning profit in an ethical manner. And we must see to it that we satisfy the interests of all the stakeholders. Who are all the stakeholders in a company? First one is the employees. Second one, customers. Third one, suppliers. Fourth one, the general public, the society. Fifth one, the government. So all these stakeholders' interests must be satisfied. Without prejudice to anybody, when you satisfy all the interests of the stakeholders through the systems and processes. On the one side, we have the system in the company. On the other side, we have the process in the company. System refers to the organizational structure. Process refers to how this organizational structure is used for accomplishing the objectives. So, corporate governance ensures the fulfillment of the interest of all the stakeholders. What we want to achieve in corporate governance is the three things, namely transparency, accountability, and integrity. The transparency, accountability, integrity is the highest level. At the highest level, this philosophy should be invariably followed. And as I said earlier, it extends not only to statutory requirements, but also beyond that. Then, I mentioned that the system, set of systems and processes, which is managed to the best interest of all the stakeholders. First one, set of systems refers to the organizational aspects and the structural aspects. Second one, the processes, they help how the things are done and how the organizational systems are followed. Now here we come across the optimum size of the board. What is the optimum size of the board? Now, well, a board here refers to the board of directors. So in a company form of organization, very well that there is innumerable number of shareholders. They elect the representatives who are called the directors. This board of directors is responsible for managing the affairs of the company. Okay. How many directors should be there? The optimum size is 15. Earlier it was 12. Now it is 15. Even if a company wants to extend the number, extend the size of the board, it can do by appointing more directors by passing a special resolution in their meeting, in their annual general meeting, in their general meeting. Next one is optimum composition of the board. How the board shall be composed of? The board of directors shall consist of experts drawn from different fields. Say, for example, technical side, functional side. Functional means marketing, finance, the HR, like that, various functional areas, and also from the technical side, and government nominees, government representatives. Then chairman and CEO. In many companies, this chairman and CEO are one and the same. In few companies, they are different. Similarly, but it is always advisable that the chairman should be different from the CEO. And nominee directors. Suppose the companies take financial assistance from institutions like banks. or other financial institutions, then they nominate their own employees to be on the boards of the directors of the companies to watch the performance of the company. Then competency and qualification of the directors. This is another point which is necessary for corporate governance, because directors should be competent people. They should be qualified people, because they must be able to contribute to the company's growth and day-to-day management. Change of the composition of the board. We can frequently change the composition depending on the requirement and the different committees of the board. For example, there is one committee called Audit Committee, Remuneration Committee, Ethics Committee, then Share Transfer Committee. Like that, number of committees are there. These committees help in the organization and management of the company. Board culture. You could see that recently, day before yesterday's newspaper, Business Line or Economic Times, you can see that the day before yesterday there was an issue that one lady wants a berth in the board of directors of the company, but the company's policy says that women are not permitted to be the members of the board, and therefore it is necessary that we respect the we honor the culture of the board. What is the culture of the board? The way the board conducts itself, the way the decisions are taken. Section 179 of the Companies Act confers powers upon the directors to work according to the articles of the company. But remember that the board of directors meets the shareholders only once in a year, that is in the annual general meeting of the company, and they never meet during the course of the operations of the company. And auditors are also made at the mercy of the director. How the auditors are appointed? Auditors of the limited companies are appointed at the behest of the directors only. Now, the manner in which the decisions are taken, the manner in which discussions take place, that decides the board culture. In India, the board culture is peculiar. There are two cultures. One is indigenous culture. The other one is the culture that we inherited from the Britishers. Similarly, we have two phases. One is apparent phase and not so apparent phase. What is apparent phase and not so apparent phase? Apparent phase is that the chairman cum managing director is the head of the board, and he manages the affairs, and the board of directors makes all the decisions. This is the apparent phase. Not so apparent phase or concealed phase is that it is really not the board which makes the decisions. It is only the chairman who makes all the decisions, and all the directors of the board accept the decisions taken by the chairman cum managing director, whether it is a private company or public company. In government company, the situation is still worse. It is neither directors of the board nor the chairman or managing director. It is only the government, that is the minister, the secretary, who is the IAS officer, who make the decision, which is passed on to the board for acceptance. Then independent directors. See, in 2002, the Sarbanes-Oxley Act was passed in the United States of America, and the concept of independent directors was enunciated. The concept of independent directors, see, in India also this independent director has been, the concept has been evolved, and section 149 says that independent directors should be appointed here. So, in order to ensure adherence to good corporate governance, see, you know, Satyam episode. In Satyam computers, the fraud was committed to the extent of around 7,000 crores. and the integrity of the high-profile independent directors was in stake in those days. And the chairman, Ramalinga Raju, was even arrested, and he was put in jail. So, had the board of directors, had the auditors exercised greater care, this fraud could have been averted. So, a person like independent director was felt necessary. As I said earlier, Section 149 says that every listed company should have at least 1/3 of the total number of directors as independent directors. And this selection is to be done by the board of directors and later approved by the shareholders in the meetings. These independent directors are not entitled to any stock option. They can simply receive only remuneration under Section 197(5) of the Companies Act. Then women directors, Section 149(1) provides that the women directors, at least the companies shall have one woman director. Which companies shall have one woman director? Every listed company, and every public company have a public capital of, paid up capital of 100 crores or more, or turnover of 300 crores or more. These companies shall have the women directors. And what is India's position? In India, the percentage of women directors on our company boards is only 7%. It is abysmally low. But gender equality is necessary in case of decision making, because this is the prerequisite of democracy. Even in our parliament, we want 33% reservation for women. In company boards also, we need a proper representation for the women directors. But the present level is only 7%. And female directors, they expand the content of the board decisions. And research reveals that companies with more women directors tend to pay less for acquisitions, because women are known for their thriftiness. Women are known for their economical decisions. And women demonstrate a democratic leadership style also. A study by the Catalyst organization and the Harvard Business School states that companies with more women corporate officers, they contributed more to the level of corporate social responsibility. And boards and managements with gender diversity have experienced higher corporate performance, higher return on equity, higher return on sales, and higher return on capital employed. Similarly, we have small shareholders. First, we saw independent directors. Second one, women directors. And third one, small shareholders. Who is a small shareholder? A shareholder holding shares of the nominal value of not more than 20,000 rupees is a small shareholder. So, if the number of small shareholders is very large in the company, then they themselves can elect the directors. Because these small shareholders could not attend the annual general meeting of the company, and every listed company can have one director elected by small shareholders. Now, next comes the shareholders' democracy. You know, the Companies Act, through various provisions, gives enormous powers to the shareholders. For example, Section 13 says that no shareholder is bound by the alterations of the memorandum or articles of association of the company on the date on which he became a member, after the date on which he became a member. Section 41 says that the shareholders can apply to the court to cancel the variation of the rights. Section 56, it gives the shareholders absolute right over the shares. Section 86 says that the members can demand poll. For example, you can see polling is done, not all the times. Voting by show of hands is normally done. Suppose members demand, we are not satisfied with the voting by show of hands, then they can demand poll as per Section 86. Section 87 of the Companies Act says that the shareholders who are entitled to more than one vote, they can use the votes differently. Suppose, for example, you can see the chairman also casting vote. the chairman can use the casting vote in the manner he likes. Section 96, shareholders may apply to NCLT, that is National Company Law Tribunal, to convene the annual general meeting. Earlier it was a CLB, Company Law Board. Now it is NCLT, National Company Law Tribunal, to convene the AGM. Moreover, Section 96 gives powers to the shareholders to receive a minimum of 21 days notice for the annual general meeting. Section 152 says that shareholders can object to the moving of a motion at an AGM for appointment of 2 or more persons as directors by a single resolution. See, suppose when a director is appointed, a separate resolution is needed. 2 or 3 directors are appointed by a single resolution. If all the shareholders agree, no issue. Even if one shareholder objects to this, that separate resolutions must be passed, then this appointment becomes null and void. Then Section 160 of the Companies Act allows the member to propose the candidature of the person to stand for directorship. Suppose one shareholder wants to contest for the post of a director, then the section permits the member, either he or through some other member, he can propose his candidature. Section 163 of the Act, it gives the option for proportional representation for appointment of the directors, either by a single transferable vote or by cumulative vote. And last one is Section 271. A shareholder, if he wants, he can present a petition to National Company Law Tribunal for winding up with the company itself. So these are all the various powers. Now, why I have listed all the sections? In spite of all the powers, all the weapons that are available in the hands of the shareholders, still they are not able to assert themselves. And they have not been used by the shareholders to rectify any wrong decision, to correct any wrongful act on the part of the directors. Reason is that shareholders are scattered, shareholders are unorganized, and the shareholders also do not care to attend the meetings. Now we have got the e-voting method and e-annual general meeting. Everything is electronic today. But in spite of it, how many shareholders really exercise their rights? How many shareholders? There was an article recently in Business Line relating to e-voting. A research was done, and the number of shareholders exercising their voting rights through e-voting is also very, very limited. It means that shareholders are not interested in exercising their right, though they have all the powers as given by the Companies Act. Then what do they want? They want only one thing, that is a higher rate of dividend and an increasing value for their shares. Then let me draw some references from Ardhashastra. See, Kautilya or Chanakya, he was a teacher in Takshashila University. He was insulted by the Nanda king. And Kautilya, then he vowed, that is, he promised that he will destabilize the dynasty, Nanda dynasty, and he left Takshila. Later, he joined Chandragupta Maurya. He coronated Chandragupta Maurya as the king. In his book, Ardhashastra, that is wealth of knowledge or knowledge of wealth, he has described very beautifully the governance principles. What are the governance principles given by Chanakya in the Arthashastra, which are well applicable even for today's corporate governance? Is judicial fairness. Today, a month back, a controversy was going on relating to this judicial fairness. One Delhi-based advocate, he leveled very serious charges against his lordships, that is the judges, and he was imposed punishment of a fine of 1 rupee. So, judicial fairness, he says that governance will be best if there is judicial fairness, number one. Number two, code of conduct for the king. We have come across code of conduct for the lower level employees, but code of conduct he was prescribed by Kautilya for the king also. Why he prescribed code of conduct for the king. Only if the king follows the code perfectly, then it will be followed by all the other members, subjects. Third one is administering the justice. Justice should be administered on time, because justice delayed is justice denied, and therefore it should be administered properly. Concept of punishment. Punishment should be deterrent, no doubt, for very heinous crimes, very serious crimes, but at the same time, there shall not be any sort of discrimination in case of punishment. Strict code of conduct for administrators and businessmen, because Mahatma Gandhi rightly said that the business people are reflecting the country's image, and therefore they must be the trustees only. So he advocated the concept of trusteeship for transforming our Indian society from capitalist one to egalitarian state. And next one is measures against misappropriation of state fund. Kaudilya suggested very serious punishment for crimes relating to misappropriation of the government fund, and identification and prevention of corrupt practices. One of the menace that is affecting the growth of any nation is corruption. So this corruption should be rooted out thoroughly. This also was advocated by Chanakya in his Arthashastra, and prescription of rules to prevent misuse of power. So corruption on the one side, misuse of power on the other side. Both should be totally avoided. In Bhagavad Gita also, we draw lessons about governance. What are the lessons that we draw? So if it is followed by all the people, that is from the grassroots level, then the people will attain peace and prosperity. First one is dharma, that is righteousness in activities. In all our activities, we shall follow this principle of dharma. Second one is kaushalam, that is optimizing one's competence and capability. I said earlier that we must continuously build our competencies. As teachers, we must continuously build our competencies and capabilities so that we can deliver the goods to the students. Similarly, in Bhagavad Gita also it is said, we must optimize our competence. Then detachment. See, this policy of detachment is very much necessary, because I said earlier in ethics, conflict of interest. When the organization's interest conflicts with the personal interest, then there arises the clash, conflict. So we must detach ourselves from all these lust rather. Next, fourth one is effective performance. So we must perform our duties effectively and efficiently. You know the difference between the two. We must do the hard work, at the same time we must do smart work also. Then emulating exemplary men. Whenever we do our work, we must emulate the good examples. We must follow the path of great men who have displayed extraordinary brilliance and excellence. There is nothing wrong in it, in emulating the example of great people. Then jignasa, that is thirst to acquire knowledge. This is nothing but research. There must be quest for knowledge. Whatever it is, wherever it comes from, whether lower level or higher level, we must have the thirst to acquire knowledge. And log sangraha, that means work for societal welfare and well-being. See, we must do the duty not only for the self, but for the upliftment of the society. Swami Vivekananda rightly said that if a person has become a graduate, if a person has got education, then he has got that education, he has got that graduation at the cost of others. That means if he has got admission in one college or one university, that means some 9 people have lost the chance. And therefore, after becoming a graduate, we must repay to the society what we have earned. So that is work for societal welfare and well-being. Then next one is developing stable mind and focused mindset in every effort. This we saw already. Focus. Concentration is very much needed. Stable is very much needed because as I said earlier, the sixth sampat, the last one is focus. That is viveka, then vairagya. Viveka should precede the vairagya. That means knowledge should precede the dispassion. Then we must also stabilize our mind, and we must have the focused mindset in every effort. Concentration. Next one is the sthita prachana. That means unperturbed mind, detachment in work, maintenance of equanimity, unperturbed mind. You should not have any perturbed way of doing the things, and you must be detached from money, material pleasures, etc. And then nikshama karma, work with confidence, work without fear, work without expectation of any return. No, these are all the things, lessons which we draw from Bhagavad Gita, which are applicable for today's governance in companies also. Now, what are the issues that we face in India? Getting the right board. Getting the board right, getting the right board. So we must have a good composition of the directors. Then only the company can be managed properly. Performance evaluation of the directors. We evaluate the performance of the employees, but at the same time, we must also evaluate the performance of the directors. Independent director section 149 says, but how independent are really the independent directors? We must ensure the true independence. And removal of the independence of the directors. I think there is some error. Removal of the non-independent independent directors. Then accountability to shareholders. The board is responsible to the shareholders. Executive compensation also. Because Companies Act says that maximum percentage of remuneration, I mean, profit is, the share of profit is 11%, executive compensation. Then founders control and succession planning. I'm going to tell you this particular, explain this particular point with some real life examples also. And last one is risk management. Privacy, data protection, board's approach to corporate social responsibility. How? See, some 2 years back, this problem started. Tata corporate governance episode. Tata mystery dispute. Cyrus Mystery, you know, he was the CEO of Tata. Then he was checked out. Then he filed a suit in the court. And he said that the board is weak. And therefore, there is excessive interference by majority shareholders, promoters group. Therefore, the shareholders, they must ensure that the right directors are retained, and the directors who are not interested in the welfare of the shareholders, who are not interested in the well-being of the company, should be checked out. Majority minority shareholder imbalance was there, and poor governance and public trust. Now recently, government of Tamil Nadu last week has passed an ordinance regarding regulation of the public trust in Tamil Nadu. Then Usha Martin company, there is a family dispute. There was a family dispute in Usha Martin. It was between the two cousins, Prashant and Rajiv Jawahar. In 2017, the board of directors passed a resolution which was moved by the State Bank nominee to strip Prashant of his post as non-executive chairman and trim the powers of Jawahar also as the chairman emeritus of the company. What was the allegation? See, in spite of the reminders from banks, the son-father duo they did not complete the documentation process relating to the pledge of their stakes to the concerned banks. And therefore, the banks were irritated and they decided to move a resolution against the father-son duo in Usha Martin Company. And many in the industry thought that Rajiv Jawahar, the managing director of Usha Martin, only influenced the board to remove them. Then Prashant later he filed a case before the National Company Law Tribunal for alleged mismanagement and fraudulent activities. And he was seeking a forensic audit also. And Prashant, an NRI, he was locked in a legal battle over the control of the Usha Martin with Rajiv and participated in a board meeting via video conference from London. What they intended was they wanted to bring a professional at the top level and put Rajiv and Prashant on the committee to oversee the sale of steel division. In February 2018, the Usha Martin board reappointed Rajiv as the managing director. Despite opposition from Rajiv and Jawahar. So all the other board members, including 6 independent directors and nominee director of the State Bank, voted in his favor. And the reappointment of the directors was subject to shareholders' approval in AGM. Murthy, I think there is some crosstalk. Similarly, there was a corporate governance problem in ICICI and Axis also. You know, Chanda Kochar was recently interrogated by the CBI, the then chairperson of the ICICI Bank. She influenced 3,050 crore to Videocon company, which was run by Venugopal Dut, in return for a sweetheart deal for his her husband Deepak Kochar of the new power renewables. Then similarly in Axis Bank, Shikha Sharma, he was actually pulled up by the Reserve Bank of India for underreporting around 9,500 crores of bad loans in 2015-16. So these directors, not only the directors, the CEOs, they committed these irregularities in the functioning of the companies. Then case against the independent directors of the IDBI. See, you know the role of the independent directors. But in IDBI, independent directors also were involved in this, were brought into controversy, not involved. They were brought into controversy. The FIR was filed against a loan given by IDBI Bank, Chennai branch, to Shivashankaran's association, firm Win-Win DOI, based in Finland in 2010. 3 years later, the firm sought voluntary liquidation and bankruptcy loss. The loan of 322 crores swelled then, and the FIR, it includes independent directors' names also. See, independent directors could not be brought into this FIR because they were not the real beneficiaries. And the loan book of IDBI in March was around 1.96 lakh crore. There were 7 directors in the board. Was it really possible for all the 7 directors, including the 4 independent directors, to look into the origin of each and every loan? Around 2 lakh crores loan were given by the banks. It was not at all possible by the directors to look into the nature of the loan given to each individual borrower. So, if at all FIR was filed against independent directors, then it tarnished their reputation. And they lost their name, which was built over a period of time. Infosys. Some 2 years back, again, you could have seen the boardroom battle of the Infosys. There was an allegation by the founder of Infosys, Narayana Murthy, that corporate governance was compromised by the Infosys board. The company acquired the Israeli company, namely Panaya, for which an amount of 200 million US dollars was settled. But what Narayana Murthy said was, no, latest valuation was only 150 million US dollars, whereas Infosys has paid 200 million. That was the charge number one. Charge number two, the former CFO, Chief Finance Officer Rajiv Bansal, when he left the company, he was given a severance package. Severance means at the time of leaving the company, some amount will be given, compensation amount. That was 18 crores was given. Narayana Murthy leveled charge number two, that this amount is very high. Then third one, he wanted a report to be submitted by an independent US agency on the allegations of irregularities in Panaya acquisition. When they acquired the company, Panaya company, there were many irregularities. No Indian agency should investigate, US agency should investigate. This was what the third charge by the founder of Infosys, Narayana Murthy. But what the board of directors did was, they defended the salary increase. They refused to make report to the public. What the board of directors claimed was that Infosys had maintained highest standards of corporate governance. And Infosys, in order to save the face, it brought back Nandan Nilekani as the company's non-executive chairman. So boardroom battles, they erupted, and they not only affect the company's image, they also hurt the client relationship also, which is forgotten by many people. So this is relating to the various issues faced with regard to corporate governance of the Indian companies. Now, I give 5 minutes for interaction with the participants.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
என்னப்பா ரெண்டாவே தெரியுதுப்பா. Presentation முடிச்சிருவேன். Stop sharing. Camera open.
Sir, thank you, sir, for your very illuminating and sharing. I have that ethics is always have, is a controversial thing. People, particularly in the case of Tata and Cyrus Mistry's case, there are two kinds of views.
Yes, sir.
One view says that Tata Group took right decision to infuse the professional leadership in the Tata Group.
Yes.
Another view says that Cyrus Mistry should not be removed like that. It is unethical.
Okay.
So my view is that in this kind of position, basically it is a taking over or removing the existing one. What ethics should have been practiced?
Now you could have seen the history. Is the question over or still it is continuing?
No, question is over. My question is that it is always there is some kind of controversy would be raised in such kind of issue.
Yes.
As you have raised for the Narayana Murthy also, where now it is a question who was right and who is wrong.
Yes. See, India is a country where, as I said earlier, some peculiar form of family succession owned companies are still in existence. Nowhere in the world it exists, because in those days the promoters, they formed the company and the legacy still continues. See, Tata leadership, you could have seen the feud between the Tata leadership and Cyrus Mistry it went to the court of law also. And you know the decision given by the honorable courts. And therefore, finally, we have to abide by the decision of the honorable court only.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, sir.
Because whatever we say, that will lead to contempt of the court then.
Yeah. Now you are right, sir, because there is a strong that one view is in the Indian company that is governed by or driven by the Lakshmi concept, that it is Lakshmi, so it should be controlled and governed strictly by the promoter.
Yes.
Another is more of a modern view, which talks about the professional competency.
Yes.
You are right on that point.
No, professional competency. Nowadays, what happens is that even in the family also, the many family members are professionally competent now. And all of a sudden, we cannot do away with the family-owned business system in India. Because though we could abolish the privy purse in the Maharajas in the kingdoms, we could not do that as far as the businesses were concerned. Because 500 princely states were there, they were all united and made one India. But with regard to the company form of organization, the family-owned or succession could not be averted. And when the Britishers left the country, they handed over the managements of the companies to their friends, their loyal employees, their even the Anglo-Indian friends, etc. And that was why this promoter system also continued in India. The managing agency system, which was abolished in 1969-70, that was also followed in India. But as I said earlier, even in family type of relationship, in Tata and other family-owned relationships, you could see still the ethical practices are followed. So if it is within the legal framework, nothing prevents from continuation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Sir, my question is, how do you look towards hard work and smart work, and where to use hard work and smart work according to you?
I would explain with a little, story like example. A woodcutter went to a forest and he was given the axe to cut the wood. First day he brought 1 ton. Second day he brought half a ton only. Then third day, like that it was reducing. Then his master asked him, why on the first day it is 1 ton, second day, why it is so? He said, the worker said, I am doing the same 8 hours of work. First day also I did, second day also I did. But this is the amount of wood that I could cut. So no doubt he did hard work, but he did not do the smart work. So what happened is, he actually did not sharpen the axe. The axe was blunt. And therefore, had he sharpened his axe, then he could have cut more than 1 ton. So that is the difference between smart work. Not doing longer hours of work means hard work. It may be hard work, but it is not a smart work. So using our brain, using our common sense, using our wisdom, we must do the work with the maximum benefit, for achieving maximum benefit with minimum cost.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Is there any other question?
Dear participants, this is the time for interaction. You please make your interaction with our resource person, Dr. Manikasan sir. Otherwise, we will close our session.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
On behalf of Department of Commerce, Alagappa University, I would like to record my sincere thanks to our resource person, Dr. Manikasan sir, for your valuable presentation, sir. You are making this session as interactive session, sir. You have given a lot of ideas to us. Definitely, I hope this will be very useful to our respected participants, sir. Once again, I thank you all. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
I would like to record my sincere thanks to respected participants for making this session as a highly interactive session. Thank you all. Once again, I would like to thank you all for your valuable participation. Thank you one and all. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, everybody. Gurumurthy?
Dear party, sir, call பண்ணிட்டாங்க உங்களுக்கு call பண்றாங்க சார் கேக்குறாங்க.
Yes, I'm here.
Dr. Gurumurthy?
Sir, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gurumurthy. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. So, you are
Professor Manikya Vasagam, sir. Very good afternoon, sir. This is Professor Muninayappa from Bangalore University, sir. How are you, sir?
Dear participants,